Welcome to SHIP Region 5 SHPEtinas virtual conference series, a conference to inspire, empower, and educate women in STEM. We had 8 fantastic speakers, and we are so excited to share their sessions on our channel. We hope you enjoy. Our 5th speaker is Miss Stephanie Hurtado Lonard. Stephanie has been such an amazing SHPEtina and has been a very active SHIP member since 2006, making a difference within our SHIP familia for 14 years. She was even a former RVP for Region 6. Steph graduated from the University of Missouri-Rolla with her bachelor's in chemical engineering. Her experience includes working in oil and gas for various Fortune 500 companies in roles such as engineer intern, field engineer, process design engineer, and project manager since 2007. She's managed capital projects valuing over $12 million. Then in 2017, Stephanie founded Technically Minded Talent, a recruitment firm to connect engineers with career opportunities. Not only an engineer and entrepreneur, but Stephanie is also a devoted wife and mother. She's married to another chemical engineer and has 2 boys, where they are residing in Huntsville, Alabama. We hope you enjoy Stephanie's talk as she speaks about the power of small talk.
You're still on mute. Hello, can you hear me? Very good. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. I hope I don't make a fool out of myself after this introduction. So I'll try my best though to make a fool out of myself again. Thank you very much. I wanted to really hone on a lot of the soft skills. It seems like everybody's talking about how to talk properly in this conference, and I hope you're enjoying this conference so far. It's a fantastic opportunity for everybody to get to know each other and get to know what everybody else has experienced so far in their careers. So the topic of today, I'm not sure if I'm able to share the screen. Let's see if I'm able to share the screen. Just one second. Share. There we go. Let me know if you can see my screen and if I can do a slideshow.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. So the topic for today is the power of small talk. And I was going to start off with a story, but it's better to start off with a question. Have you ever been to a conference or a reception and you just walk in and the first thing that you think, what is the very first thing that you think? Said to yourself, well, how do I introduce myself? How do I even start a conversation from thin air with a complete stranger? And even if there's only 1 or 2 people, how can you find a common ground just by going up to them? So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about, is how to work on your pitch, your elevator's pitch, your presence, how to develop that, and how your network is going to be very valuable for you in the future. So before we even begin, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more than what Kat said. My whole family's from Ecuador, and I graduated with a chemical engineering degree, but I did not, I was not born in Ecuador. Unfortunately, I really actually love saying that I'm from Ecuador, and I've lived in Ecuador a couple years, but when, it's funny when I meet people that were born in Ecuador, they actually tell me a lot of stories. Oh, so you know the street from down the street from the avenue to the other avenue. And I wish I can relate, but I can't. And then when I come back to the US, you know, sometimes from after summer vacations that I go visit my grandparents, and they ask me, oh, in the US, the baseball game, the basketball games, and, have you catch the game? And I still can't relate. So I like to say that I'm not from there and I'm not from here. Ni de aquí ni de allá, porque I can't catch the slangs. If you talk to me a little bit more than 5 minutes, you can tell that the slangs, it's really new to me. That I don't have an accent, but slangs are very new to me. And I have always, people get a big laugh after they talk to me. So I had to learn that a lot after a couple years of being here in the US, after I studied in Ecuador and during my childhood. So that's my childhood. So I lived so many places. Every 3 to 4 years, we moved around, and we ended up in Missouri out of nowhere. I'm a New Yorker, lived in Midwest for college and high school, but worked in the deep South. So I've been in various cultures in the US. So I've got to observe a lot of things. So it's quite amazing when you talk to me. I've gathered a lot of stories. So as a chemical engineer, I started in the oil rigs and drilling, and then I moved on to computer design, actually designing mechanical equipment for chemical plants. And then I moved on to project manager, and that was my dream job, right? Being in a corporation, being on the client side, that was my dream job. And I landed, and when I walked into that company, my former employer, I said, I have made it to the top, mountaintop. Little did I know that afterwards, a bonus happened, meaning I got laid off, and I had an opportunity to do something for myself. So once I got laid off while I was pregnant, a lot of people would think that will be the worst thing that could happen to them. Actually, it was the best thing to happen to me, because for 9 months, I didn't have to work. So my pregnancy was super easy. I didn't have the pressure, the stress, and so that was great for me. And then I had an idea. When I had my firstborn, I said, a lot of people that got laid off with me and around me need help. And I have been laid off for, it's really common to be laid off in oil and gas a couple times in your career path, because that's how cyclical the oil and gas industry is. So, so this vision came to help people find jobs, and that was really easy how to find jobs really quick. And why was that? It was because I utilized my network to the fullest potential. And so I said to myself, let's start this company. And Technically Minded Talent was born. And I started even going to meetings with other CEOs, trying to find how I can help these corporations find talent. And it was just amazing how easy it came. But it was easy because it was not an overnight effort. It came from 14 years of being in with SHIP, practicing every SHIP conference. And it also came with practicing presentations within my corporation as an engineer, technical presentations. So it wasn't that I was a natural. It was all these experiences that allowed me to get to that point. And whenever someone asked me, was the switch from an engineering career to an entrepreneur, was that easy? I would say it was nerve-wracking just thinking of it, but once you do it, it just comes easy because you have been doing it all along. You've been pitching your knowledge all this time, you just didn't know it. Other than that, I'm a mother of 2 toddlers. I'm a devoted daughter. What I mean by that is I had the opportunity to get to know my parents in the last couple of years as an adult, not as a mom, not as a daughter, and also as a dad. You get to know them throughout your whole life as parents, but you don't know them as people. And I'll touch base on that later, but Think about that. Do you really know your parents really well as adults, as just people? Have you had small talk with them and then deep talks with them about how they view the world and where does that view come from? Like in their past, what did they enjoy doing? Also, I've been a lifetime member of SHIP, and I have been devoted to SHIP to every single year I have held a leadership position. And I say that again, I consistently been active in SHIP. I haven't even rested even within my pregnancies, during my pregnancies. It's been quite a joy, and I really love being involved in SHIP in every capacity, whether it's K through 12 programs or mentoring college students, or even creating the professional development programs for even professionals. I truly enjoy it. So that's one of my biggest hobbies is SHIP ever since college. Another hobbies that I have is travel and photography. So what I mean by that when I joined them together is I used to own a photography studio while I was in college, and that's how I actually paid my rent while I was in college. So I used to do wedding photography. So that's one fact about me during college, what I used to do. Let's see. So what are we going to go over in Power Small Talk? We're going to define it first, and we're going to go through some scenarios, and we're going to have some benefits of how small talk can benefit you, and then how can it go all wrong. And then you're going to tell me what some takeaways you had. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat, and then I can assist them at the end. So according to dictionary, small talk, it's a light or casual conversation. And it's typically with people you don't know. So let's see. One moment. So typically when people you don't know. So what does that mean to you? That means you're going to be scared. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be wondering the unexpected reactions they're going to have, right? But I see it as an opportunity to learn from another culture, another person with bigger ideas, or they probably just have different ideas than you, or they must have different habits or experiences that you've never encountered before. But how do you get for someone to open up, truly open up? So I want you to take away one concept. It's human nature for people to want to and like to talk about themselves. They enjoy it. Believe it or not. If I say an introvert likes to talk about themselves, they do. I went to a school with 80% male and 20% women, Missouri Rolla, Missouri S&T. This whole school had 72 engineering disciplines, 72. Arts was very little. When graduation ceremony was up and they said, okay, everybody who majored in English or in art, there was literally less than a dozen people. So yes, it was truly an engineering school that had 99% introverts. So fraternities, there were probably maybe 10, 20. And then sororities, there were less than 4. So you can imagine the size of how you can actually break a barrier and how can you stand out. I stood out a lot. I'm an extrovert. I can, however, sometimes it's contagious to be an introvert when you're surrounded by a lot of people. So one thing that you might want to have in mindset whenever you are in a small talk scenario is how to make this conversation flow and memorable. Why? Why do we want to make it memorable? Now think about it. If you have a small talk with someone that and you talk about the weather, and you talk about just different subjects. So now get this, I have traveled a lot and I have been to conferences quite a bit every year of different kinds. And the same subjects come up, and it's weather, it's sports, it's about family or where you're from. Typical 4 questions. However, does it go beyond that? Now you have the control of that. And how you can make it memorable is by the following. Ask open-ended questions. Now think about that, as well as the concept of how to make them talk about themselves. Okay? All right, so let's go through the scenarios. You're in a work meeting and you come early, a couple minutes early. Now, what are you going to talk about? There's only one other person there. You can talk about what was your last vacation. You can talk about news about the competition of the other company. You know how sometimes in engineering firms, they lose contracts or they win contracts, or there's a vendor that comes up. You can talk about that. Did you hear that XYZ company won the contract that we were fighting for? You know, you just never know if you bring this news up to someone else that they might say, you know, I haven't heard about that. And they just happen to be working on that project that you just mentioned. That could be something. Now, I want to hear from you guys, because I'm probably boring you by now. What do you talk about when you go early into a work meeting? Now, unmute yourself, tell me your name and location you're calling from, and tell me what is one topic that someone has asked you, or have you brought it up before a work meeting? Now, don't be shy.
Hey, this is Angelica. I'm calling from Columbus, Indiana. And the one thing that we always talk about is the weather. Indiana weather, it's crazy.
Yes. So beyond the weather, has it extended anywhere else?
Usually I try to extend it to like events that are happening around based on the weather.
Okay.
So like maybe if there's some event that I thought it was interesting, maybe because they're from different areas that I am from within the state, maybe they know an event that happen annually or something along those lines.
Okay, bingo. So if you connect it with something that is going on year long, or that specific season, they're going to connect with you. And they said, you know what? It's October, so it's pumpkin patching, and I'm gonna take my kids there. And you said, you know what? I've never been to a pumpkin patch. And there's a connection, right? So usually if you just say with the weather, I like how a lot of the talks or TED Talks or just a lot of the advisors, they say, you know, just don't talk about the weather. However, if you twist it in a way where there's events going on like a carnival or a pumpkin patch like that, it can bring a story, right? So sometimes you can even bring up what happened to me personally is that I always am the new kid on the block because I've moved a lot, and I also moved from job to job, and I've moved a lot of cities. So I used to say, you know, there's a construction on XYZ street. What do you think is gonna happen there? What do you think they're gonna build? Bingo. Did you notice how I said, what do you think? That means I'm asking for their opinion. You know, if you really relate to all these social media platforms, And why are we so addicted? It's because we're gathering everybody else's opinion. We're like, oh, ¿qué más? Oh my goodness, dime más. Like a telenovela, you know? Yeah, I know. Omar's eyes went up because he's a big fan of them, especially Turkish telenovelas. But if you really think that way, that mentality, this opinion, and let them talk about themselves, I hope you're taking notes about this, because a lot of the videos that I have watched about small talk when I was learning about them, they gave me a lot of dull topics, and all of these ideas that I'm telling you, it just comes from a lot of personal practice. And I think that is the major goal of how to get better with the small talk, is a lot of practice. So the next topic or next scenario is coffee break. So you're in a coffee break at work. And this is the hardest one because you have a lot smaller time frame to make a connection. So what could you possibly talk about? I want to hear from another lady. What could you possibly talk about in a coffee break? And if you hear my kids on the background, I'm sorry. This is how it is. Don't be shy.
Well,
So something, oh, go ahead.
this is Elsie in Indiana. Well, what a previous speaker told us that we couldn't gossip, so now I'm stuck.
Yes, that is true. You know, you never know who's listening. So for example, layoffs are coming up in a company, or a merger. You're in the middle of a company merger. And the most obvious and human nature thing to do is that you want to gossip of what is the next step. Are you going to be on the blacklist? Are you going to be cut off? Does anybody know if our department's going to be affected? I know, I've been through it. It's tense. And the more you talk about it, the more tense it gets. So it does not do any good to talk about it during coffee breaks. Absolutely good comment. Gossip should be number one off your list. You know how you can actually make it go away? Is by a good leadership skill is talking about positive things in a negative environment. So positive comments, hopeful stories, reroute it to something else. Or even nonverbal skills. Just a big smile goes long ways. You know, nowadays with COVID and the pandemic, see, my English is not so good. I go to my neighborhood, and I'm telling you, this whole social distance and the whole mask protection, I understand that, that's great. However, from their porch, they can say hi, but neighbors are doing this and walking away. At work, I see that too, where they just go the New York style, where I grew up, a small part of my life. In the subway train, there's a unspoken rule that you cannot make eye contact with the other person that is sitting in front of you. You must look away. And I was trained to do that really good. So I've lived my whole life in apartments. So once I moved to a house, to suburban life, it was weird when I used to get gifts and welcome gifts. I'm like, what do you want? You know? But now ever since March, I see people, I go out, you know, with my kids, and I'm strolling around, and I see people coming out, neighbors coming out of, and they're new neighbors because I just recently relocated. They come out and they literally do the New York style. I don't see you. Like, they're gonna get infected from like probably 30 feet away, and they can't even wave hi. So make sure to do that. Going back to coffee break, to at least acknowledge them and smile or say good morning. Because with generation and generation, I've seen that the loss of politeness has been lost too. By just saying good morning, it's crazy, right? I'm not saying the whole generation, I'm just saying some, as younger you get, some forget to say good morning. And it goes long ways just to say good morning or good afternoon. Have you ever seen anyone say good afternoon? Have you ever heard anyone? It's been lost completely. Now, another point to be on a coffee break and you make it seem a lot faster and a lot more memorable is compliments. A lot of people liked to receive compliments. Now, of course, men and women, it can be tricky. So for the men in the call, be careful, right? However, if you say the following, I like your watch. I bet there's a story behind it. Wow. You know, a lot of people are going to just look at you and say, you know, you're trying to get a story out of me, huh? Yes, absolutely. That connection, I bet you come back after this seminar and you have asked that question, you're going to get a smile out of the person. I instantly get a smile even from Omar Torres. And that guy does not smile that much, let me tell you. He's not smiling on purpose right now, but if I tickle him, watch. So compliments can go very, very far with just one simple sentence like that. Now, let's move on to the next slide and next scenario. Another one, it's another fun one. SHP conventions, when they were in person. Do you remember when they were in person? I know it's been quite some time ago, quite conferences ago. But this one was taken in Region 1 RLDC. And what can you observe from this picture? Let's make fun of Victor here. What can you observe from Victor's body language? Any comments?
That he's comfortable.
Yes, very good. What do you observe on the body language of her?
Like, hurry up, tell me what you're gonna say so I can
Okay, someone else's perspective?
She's like face towards him, like as if she's interested in what he's saying.
Okay. Can you tell that probably my perspective was hurry up, get to the point type of face? Does that, no? Maybe because that's my personality. I tend to be like that. It's like, all right, can we get to the point? And he seems like he's taking his time. You're right. Like he's very comfortable. It's like, let me tell you the story. Okay, let me wait, where was I? Type of guy. You know, like Omar. You know, he tends to do that quite a lot. It's like, where was I? Oh, yes, let me get to my point. Yes, very much so. So where I'm going with this is body language says a lot. And first impressions, especially during these SHP conferences, is going to be valuable. Why? Because an interview might come up after this, and you might not even know that the person you're talking to might be the person that you're going to be interviewing with. Or is the person that is probably going to be your coworker after a couple years, or it's someone that's going to write your recommendation for you. So you better have a good story that will connect you after this encounter. So when you're in conferences or conventions or even a party, a very good line that can help you with is, what was your favorite session of the day? What was your favorite speaker? Again, they're not yes or no questions. They're actually trying to ask for more information. So another thing is, they're all coming from different locations in a conference. So this is an opportunity to ask them, oh, so do you live around here, or where are you coming from? The where. That will tell you, are they comfortable where they are? Me coming from the Midwest to Phoenix, Arizona, I was dying with the heat. Or, you know, you go to Denver and it's snowing and you're not even used to the 12 inches of snow. So, and those things can come up. However, in this scenario, I would suggest not to talk about the weather too much, because there's so many other topics that you can talk about. Only talk about the weather when you really don't have anything else going on in your immediate surrounding. So that will be another tip. All right, so in the environment that we are in right now, we have a lot of virtual learning scenarios. We have one-on-one chat rooms. I want to see what you guys have, and ladies have been experiencing. How do you go up to, for example, I don't know, in a virtual setting like a virtual career fair? What do you talk and how do you approach someone in a virtual career fair? What's the very first thing that you say? What's your entry line? Now, let's hear it from people in Texas, Alabama. Anyone? Louisiana. Can I get a volunteer? What's your entry line? No one?
I don't know if this is the entry line, but I always usually start off with, hi, can you hear me? Just to make sure my mic works in a virtual setting.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so that's in a video conference. So, you know, I find it very difficult on a chatting, just texting. Do you find that difficult? Can I have some nods? Yes. And I wonder how other people even introduce themselves on LinkedIn. What is their opening line? So I researched this when I started trying to be a salesperson, right? So the very first rule of thumb is finding mutual ground of a mutual contact. So I think this could be applied also in a career fair, where you say, you know, in XYZ company, I know XYZ person. That has always worked for me. So that could be something that can help you. Another thing that could help was, you know, I graduated from Missouri S&T, and now that you have LinkedIn, and if you know the person, you identify the picture of the person, and you go and research that person that you're going to contact, and they just have, and you look up what school they went. Usually, if you look up alumni, you're gonna have a better connection of what professors are still there. Trust me, in my college, the professors that they were for me are coworkers, are co-students of people that I met at the career fair. So that's brilliant, right? There's a connection there. They're like, he's still there? Yes. Dr. Book is still there. Can you believe it? And now he has a bigger tummy and he rests his hands on that tummy. Yeah, wow. So that type of connection is really good. So another thing is, in a career fair setting, whether it's virtual or in person, they always want to have, since it's such a speed dating scenario, they want to have information and they want to give. So it better have a give and receive relationship. If you offer one advice, then you offer an advice in how to get more students or something. You know, it'd be great that if you come back to our chapter so you can market our your company to us. That's a great incentive how to have a connection. Another thing is, I've noticed that in virtual settings, a lot of people want to have multiple conversations, and I always advise to have a minimum of one conversation at a time, because you might actually get confused with so many windows open. And this is not with video conference. This is just the texting, chatting part. So I always advise that. So next scenario. Oh, no, it's not working. All right, so here's this personal story time. Unexpected encounters. Does anyone know who's in this picture besides myself? No? Anyone? Can you guys hear me? Girls? Ladies? Okay, but no one knows? Okay, so I must be that old. Okay, so this person, so I'll tell the story first. I was walking into a Society of Professional Engineers back in 2007 event. And I was an intern in Halliburton in Oklahoma. And I had to drive from Duncan, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City. And this event was on the penthouse of the Petroleum Engineer and Petroleum Tower. If anyone knows that, that is the tallest building in Oklahoma City. And it was quite elegant and everything. So I go as an intern, I'm like, I'm barely 20, why not? Let's go. And they have free food. They have hors d'oeuvres and everything. First time I ever even learned the word of hors d'oeuvres. So that was quite exciting for me. So I went, and little did I know about the event. It was an open networking event with a guest speaker. The first person that I saw after I registered is this person on the picture. I started talking to them, to this person, and I said, okay, so you work at Chesapeake. That's great. I saw that Chesapeake is a sponsor. That's great. What do you do at Chesapeake? You know, me, barely 20 years old. They said, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So what did you study to get to a Chesapeake company? Me not knowing what Chesapeake really is. All I knew, it was a petroleum company. They said, oh, I used to do accounting, and, you know, just some numbers that got me to this position. And, but tell me about yourself. So I was telling him, oh, I'm from Ecuador. And, you know, everybody thinks it's exotic as soon as you say that, because it's Oklahoma, right? And then, so then I said, okay, yeah, this is my first time in Oklahoma, and it's okay. And then they present the speaker of the night, Aubrey McLennan, and he gets up and goes up the stairs. Apparently he was in the Forbes magazine, and he is the CEO and the founder of Chesapeake, a billionaire who was really famous, not only that year, but the entire generation of oil and gas, right? Everybody in oil and gas and natural gas will know Aubrey McLennan. And this photograph was taken by a professional photographer, and I said, oh, okay, I'm guessing I'm taking a picture with an employee, right? Not only that, I must mention, I did ask him, what does CEO stand for? Because I noticed that on his name tag. And that's when they said, now let's announce the keynote speaker. And I said, I'm never making that mistake again. That every time that I'm gonna go to a presentation, I must read who is gonna be the keynote speaker and how do they look like. Let me tell you, I had a red face. Yes, so hopefully you don't make the same mistake as I did. Okay, so I have another story. This must be the last story of the day. Usually in oil and gas, we have a lot of downtime, and during commissioning, how do you relate to a room full of guys in the middle of the night? You know, in oil rigs, we have to wait until the cement dries off, and there's nothing you can do in the field. So you're in the trailer, and you basically have to just relate with guys, because this happens multiple nights, and there's 12-hour shifts. So whenever you're in field engineering, you have to relate. This happened to me throughout my whole career, that there's a lot of downtime during a lot of construction time. So how do you relate? Well, there was one time where I was so so into my job of making it perfection. So I went with a clipboard, and I decided to look at a skid to see if the pipe were connected according to the engineering drawing that I had. That was my job as a project manager. And I told the construction inspector, hey, you know what? I noticed that the piping skid is not as the drawing says here. What can we do about it? And he said, you know, it is right. I've checked it multiple times, was his response. So I said, let's go together and you can see. And he literally threw a tantrum. He literally stomped on the ground, did this, and was really mad. And let me tell you, his hard hat fell off as how he was shaking his whole body because he was mad that he has done a good job. So I said, whoa, how do I handle this situation? I just asked myself. And I remember when I first met him, I remember the first small talk we had. And I said, I remember he said he enjoys Snickers. So I went from the tantrum that in the middle of the tantrum that he's doing, I went to the fridge and I went to the top and I got a basket of Snickers and I said, is it Snicker time? And I showed him the bowl of Snickers. And he's just bust off laughing. Like I deviated the situation. The bomb that was there, I just diffused it into a laughing moment that he couldn't believe what was going on. How mad he was that he said, you know, let's go see that skid again. Let's see if you were right. And I'll bet you a bunch of Snickers. So I'll always remember that with a conversation, it's just the start of a relationship, right? You never know when that piece of information is going to be useful. So some of the benefits out of a small talk is not only the information of exchange that you do, but it's also how easy and smooth it can go afterwards, like a negotiation. If you didn't build up that relationship just like a tree that you just put water every day, it will not grow. So if you think about it that way, then you will be open to small talk all the time, right? So I want to hear from you. What are some scenarios that you remember that just some chit chat that went wrong and absolutely just awkward silences? I want to hear some examples from you. So anyone, please don't disappoint me in being silent. Anyone?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
So I remember one time during my internship, I was talking to the product manager, and I guess I have the tendency of sometimes being somewhat quiet. And he said, "What? Aren't you a Lopez? Why aren't you being louder like the rest of them?" And I went silent because I was in the middle of eating, so I had a mouthful. I couldn't say anything, which is why I was being so quiet. And he just walked out. So I feel like after that, it was very awkward to even see him, and I feel like he also felt embarrassed. But I've been in a lot of situations where it's like Hispanics are expected to be loud and feisty, or I'm not sure what they expect from us, but yeah, definitely a very awkward situation.
Okay, I want to hear from someone else. How would you have responded to this if you were in that situation as Sonia explained? Come on, Angelica. Come on, Denise, Elenia, I know you got in you. Natalie, Maria. I see you, Alexia.
So the situation is you were eating and he just basically said that weren't you allowed? So I would, I've been asked that question and I would be like, well, not all Mexicans like spicy food. Not all Latin Americans people speak Spanish or something like that.
Very good, very good. You know, I've been very bad at comebacks too. I was raised in New York, and I have this, my face just reveals everything. So I would say that my nonverbal language will be very, very impactful. I would just do the stare like, are you serious? And then they will regret it. Oh yeah, regret it. Anyone else? What other situations have you been that just were just so awkward that it went really bad?
Well, I remember something with you from last conference in Arizona. I was talking to Omar, and Omar and I were laughing so much, and you just gave us a look that killed our laughs instantly.
Oh, so now we're making fun of myself. Okay. So yes, so see, nonverbal language is really powerful. Someone else?
I've been in this situation before where like I start off like really friendly and like, oh, you know, how are you doing? How's your day going? Or things like that. And the person's just like non-responsive. Like, I'm fine. Like this literally happened to me recently. I was like, how are you doing? And the response was, hey. And so I was like, how are you doing? Like, how's it going? And it's just, I'm fine. Like, or like where it's really, I don't know, not necessarily even that the person doesn't want to engage, just that they, I don't know, it almost feels like a refusal, but it's not angry. It's just, it's hard to navigate that.
Oh, for sure. And that happens to me all the time, especially nowadays. So the best way to say that is to deviate you only have two options, right? To completely let it go and just go about your day because maybe they're having a bad day and they don't want to explode on you. Or the second option is to say, is everything all right? That's the most typical American way to do it, is everything all right? Is there anything I can help you with? And that changes it completely. They're like, whoa, she noticed. She noticed that I did not want to talk to anybody, but she asked. So I might say, thank you for asking. You know, that empathetic goes long ways too. Okay, one more scenario. I'm curious to hear because we all have different experiences.
I have one that's kind of different, and I've been trying to really work on it, but I have the tendency to talk too much when it's supposed to just be a small talk, like a small talk conversation, and I could always tell that they're kind of like, like trying to like keep up, and I'm here like, like trying to just keep the conversation going. And so now that I'm working, you know, with people at my part-time job, and I have to talk to people and I want to be like real professional. And so when we start talking and I realize, okay, wow, I'm talking a lot. So then I try to bring it back, but I feel like people are so used to like me facilitating the conversation all the time that then it gets really awkward if I stop. And then I'm like, should I continue or should I stop? It's just like a really hard time.
It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. I would say that no one is going to say, you know what, I love small talk. No, you don't hear that, right? You hear, I dread it so much, I just want to avoid it. You know, it's funny in the industry. I don't know if there's some professionals on the call, let me know, just raise your hand and say amen or not if you can relate to the following. But there's acronyms and there's also nicknames for equipment out in the field, right? So for example, for regulators, everybody in the industry knew Big Joe and Little Joe. And they will talk with those nicknames. Hey, just buy a Big Joe or a Little Joe. You know, just a Big Joe. And for the longest time, I kept track of all these nicknames. And then that was my conversation, my small conversation started. Is like, okay, what does that mean? And do you happen to know this so-and-so nickname mean? And apparently, Big Joe and Little Joe were trademark and copyrighted nicknames. And they only meant a brand of regulators, Fisher valves. So it really blew my mind to see how, why not call them Fisher vowels? But industry-wide, they all know. It even got worse whenever I saw some flanges, they call them whoppers in midstream oil and gas. And a lot of people may not relate if they're not in oil and gas, but yeah, they call them whoppers. I'm like, well, what are fries? You know, like pig launchers and all these nicknames. Is like, man, it's a different language. So that's another conversation starter, that if you want to just ask questions, because a lot of people, the younger that you are, the more opportunity you have to ask questions and not look like a fool, right? So we're coming to the end of it. Let me see, I can't. Sorry. Hopefully you can see what I'm seeing right now. So I want to relate and just repeat all the lessons that I was trying to convey here. Conversations leads to relationships, and storytelling conveys relatable messages. By that I mean, if you can tell your story, all personal experiences, and relate it to the situation that you are, it will convey the message a lot better. And it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's all the body language that we were saying, we talked about. Hopefully this works, and hopefully this whole session gives you an ease and peace of mind and how to start a small talk at any situation that you are. I will go now and direct all questions, but before I start answering questions, I do want to thank Susana and Kath and all the regional team for putting this amazing event together. I know it takes a lot of effort. So now, if Susana, can you help me with the chat and let me know what questions that you see, if any, or if you can start putting questions, ladies.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourselves. And oh yes, I agree, Sarah. Acronyms too, everywhere. It's crazy.
So any questions about anything we've spoken or my experience or anything at all? Or how to handle some situation? No? It was
I guess I got a question.
Oh.
Let's figure out how I can say. So I guess like when it comes to like group small talks, say if I'm like with somebody else, like we're really good friends and we could talk about it, talk all day if we want to. But if someone comes up to them and they go off on a conversation, and I'm kind of don't relate, how would I make it like less awkward, or in a sense, because I'm very introvert, so I don't know how to be like, I'm just gonna see my way out of your conversation, or I don't know how to like, you know, put input in there.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So there's 3 people in the conversation. And this third person, you can't relate. There's always a way that you can relate. Was it a woman? Was it a man?
It's more of like the topic they're talking about. Like, say it's in coding or cybersecurity. I'm like, I don't know anything about that. But you know, they're going on their own conversation. I'm just like back and forth, like, I don't know what to say.
Oh, well then don't feel the need that you have to chime in. You might learn a thing or two, right? So you do a lot of active listening. Sometimes it's best to just stand back and learn, observe. And then if there's something that you did not understand, you said, oh, could you tell me a little bit about this? You know, that could be a strategy for them to direct their attention to you and teach you something. Because always take an opportunity to learn. Anyone else? No?
Yes, we have a question on the chat from Natalie. She's asking, once I got told that to avoid small talk and to just get to the point, how can you gauge when to use small talk?
Oh, I would say that small talk, the definition is if you have a limited amount of time to speak, right? So if you were before a meeting, after a meeting, in a networking place, you can always do an exchange a few words by just paying them a compliment, by just observing of their surroundings, or just simply saying, "Hey, I'm I'm curious about this. Can you help me with something?" You know, the hardest thing to do is ask for help. So for them to listen to that and they're like, "Oh, you know what? I can help you. Wow, I can be the hero of the day." It might help them quite a bit to make them feel better. I'm trying to go to the chat, see if I miss anything. But yes, don't avoid small talk. You just never know who. With all my examples, I hope I can relay that message that you never know who you're going to meet.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Like, even for, I guess, like a quick story was, it was my first time at a ship conference. I think I was chapter president at the time. And at that time, you know, we had like a lot of share rides throughout the conference from the airport towards the conference. And I actually shared a ride with like a bunch of like random like people that I didn't even know they were attending the conference at all. And it was just me and one of my other friends that went to the conference together. And you know, I was just talking to her like, have you looked at your resume? Do you want me to look it over? You know, just talking about like how to use the STAR method and, you know, just quick tips. And like a gentleman that was in the same car ride, he asked like, "Oh, are you all going to the ship conference?" And we were like, "Oh yeah, we're going." You know, he's like, "Oh cool, like, you know, I'm a recruiter for Ford." And I'm like, "Oh really?" So that's when we started like, I guess, small talking afterwards. And it actually ended off pretty well, to the point where he was like, "You know, I want you guys to come to the booth, and, you know, I can introduce you to the mechanical recruiters," because he was in cybersecurity or something like that. So yes, it is very effective in just small talking.
And I would say, going back to the question of being avoiding small talk, I would say that if you do avoid it and you go straight to the point in the small talk, then you will lose that storytelling piece, right? And that introduction that makes it memorable, and saying, "Hey, did you catch that show Game of Thrones last night?" And then they're like, "Oh, you know what? I'm a fanatic of it. I'm such a fan." And then you just connect like that so beautifully. If that would sounds a lot better connection than, "You know, I need a job. Do you have a job? Can you give me a job? Are you a recruiter?" Yeah. I get that a lot. I get that quite a bit. It's like, "Oh, you're a recruiter. Gimme, 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 gimme." No, it's not gonna work. So I want to thank you for all your time. I appreciate it. If there's one last question, I will take it. And if there's any stories, nope.
I do have one comment on the story part. So I work a lot for the past time. I've been working with a lot of technicians in the field, and believe me, when you're an engineer and you're working with technicians, they're like, "Oh, you're the engineer, you know." And sometimes just like you can sound demanding at one point because you're just like, "Hey, I need this," and you can see their feelings or their vibes when someone asks you, "Hey, I need this," rather than, "Hey, good morning, how are you? La, 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 la. Hey, by the way, can you help me with this?" It's a completely different approach.
Bingo. Bingo. You hit it right on the nail. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah.
everybody.
I was just gonna add a comment about that. So very similar to Angelica, actually. When I was at my first internship, it was in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is a very like non-diverse area. So the site that I was working at was also very not diverse. And when I was doing my intern presentation, I like mentioned like one of my hobbies is that I'm in mariachi. So I thought that it was like going to be really cool, and somebody was going to be like, oh my gosh, I love mariachi or something like that, you know, to build the bond. And nobody came up to me. They were all going to the other interns afterwards, and I felt really sad. And then this one person was like, oh, you should really like talk to like our janitor Nino, like you would love him. And I was like, okay. And so I ended up having like small talk conversations with Nino, and then another lady named Maria that was working in the cafeteria, and they became like my BFFs at the site just from having like those small little small talk. You could tell like they like felt so happy because nobody else was really paying attention. I think there's like a saying like, if the way you treat like the people, like the janitor, and then the way you treat the CEO, like both, like you should treat them the same, right? And so I thought that, you know, just having those small little conversations with everybody at your site, not just your coworkers, is so important. And I feel like it really brightens up their day.
Oh, definitely. Completely agree. Well, with that amazing story, I want to thank both of you again. And I'm guessing this is the last session, or there's one more session after this? 2 more sessions. Okay, well, perfect. I hope you enjoyed the conference so far.
Yes, thank you so much, Steph.
Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to continue staying updated with SHIP Region 5, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Stay connected by following us on all our social media. Our Instagram is at SHPRegion5, our Facebook is at SHIP.Region5, our Twitter is at SHIP_Region5. We hope you could join us live for the second part of our SHPEtinas series. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.